So the Premier League is back this weekend, and what a game to come back to. Arsenal versus Man United. Both teams seem to excel in the final third with all those attacking players, but they both struggle at the back, so it's going to be a fascinating encounter. It's Friday, our favourite day. Let's talk tactics. So the first thing we need to look at when both of these teams come up against each other is how they're doing in the league. I mean, very close in their position. So if you look at it here, Arsenal sitting at 6th place, whereas Manchester United in 7th. So very close there. What's fascinating about this is that they both seem around the same time to score, like when both teams are scored in the same game. They're very similar numbers when it comes to games over 2.5 goals and under, with both maybe just one game separating them. If you go to the next graphic, what I want to point out about this is that both teams, again, very close on when goals scored, but this is what's going to make and break this game. Both Arsenal and Manchester United exactly the same and scored first. And it's fascinating because when they both score first, they tend to go on and win the game, minus a couple of upsets like Swansea and like Leicester for Manchester United. So I think they're very evenly matched. I think a lot of criticism has been put in both teams' defence, and rightly so. But when you look at Arsenal coming into this next game, I want to talk briefly about their formation. When you're going to go in with Arsenal's team, you've got a 4-2-3-1. And I want to focus on that 3-1 up there because if you look at the international break, all of these players are thriving in their international surroundings. You've got Danny Welbeck, who will be hungry coming back against Manchester United after they sold him. Oxlade-Chamberlain, who done well against Scotland. It was kind of annoying to watch, but I'm not going to sit here and judge. But then you've got Alexis Sanchez as well, who is the man on fire for Arsenal at the moment. I got asked a question, who is the most one-man team at the moment? I think me and the Geordie talked about it, whether it is Arsenal or Manchester City. And I think with Arsenal is that not as much credit is given to Danny Welbeck in the runs that he makes. Because if you look here, what Danny Welbeck does so well for any player who can play in this final third is that he's so fluent in his movement, and he'll make runs into the corner. And you might think that they're needless runs. He might look like a headless chicken going to nowhere. But in his own mind, he'll track, runs right around here, he'll track back, he moves anywhere in that final third. And what that gives for a guy like Alexis Sanchez, who does work hard, it gives him the ability to go anywhere as he pleases without messing up the structure of the team. And that is essential for a guy like Sanchez, because if you see his goal against Swansea, he basically comes off of the picture, he just floats in from the left-hand side, and he finds his way in the box, the ball's drilled across, and before you know it, they get a goal, and Sanchez is the man to pick it up. His runs are good, he is very aggressive, he is very strong and fast, which all the attributes you need in the Premier League. But I have to give credit to Danny Welbeck, and he'll have that extra bit between his teeth going against Manchester United. So I do predict that Arsenal, there will be goals in this game. Both teams are very poor at the back, has to be said. Arsenal's back four is somewhat of a makeshift right now. They had Monreal playing in at centre back. And again, it's this partnership between the two. They don't have a partnership in there. So they're both not on the same page, which you need to be as one. The best partnership at the moment in the Premier League is Cahill and Terry. They move together. Wherever they go, they're like magnets. And that is essential with your whole back four, but especially your centre-backs. So let's go on to Manchester United, because how are they going to feature with their long list of injuries? It is their starting 11 with injuries could almost beat, I think, their starting 11 without the injuries at the moment. So let's take a look here. Raphael's out, who usually plays right back. Luke Shaw said to be out. We're kind of doubting whether that's going to be back, left back. So they're going to have to bring in two new fullbacks. Jones and Rojo, as we know. Evans, probably a good thing that he's out. Falcao, big factor. I mean, they've not really seen anything from him. They haven't got this formation that's going to suit Falcao, because he's not played as much, and this has been a problem throughout his career. So it's going to be interesting how they'll shape up. Carrick, I would like to see back as a somewhat of a Manchester United fan. I feel like they need someone like him. Daley Blint's a big one recently, and Young and Lingard. So how will they face up against a team like Arsenal with all these injuries? The last game against Crystal Palace, don't ask me why Louis van Gaal did this, but it went with a 4-5-1 to start with. And there was no surprise to me why there was 0-0 until they brought on Juan Mata and he had a pop from wide. Why are you going at home against a team like Crystal Palace who are struggling with a 4-5-1? I have no idea. At the Emirates, it's going to be a different story, because if you go with a 4-5-1, you run the risk of maybe coming a lower game like 0-0 and maybe conceding the goal towards the end, because they've got this makeshift back four that we don't really know who's going to go in there. It could be Valencia, McNair, and just basically who can try and fill in that role. With Blint out, he played centre back in the last game, he won't be there, and with Shaw, it's going to be very tough for Manchester United. So you've got one or two options. You go at Arsenal and you hit them on the attack, because their defence is weak as well, like Swansea, ever so isolated basically in there. And that is what I'm going to talk about. If it was me, I would go with what Arsenal are playing, combat the exact same formation. I would go with a 4-2-3-1. And what they'll do is it'll allow Di Maria, I think he's been given too much of a free roll, and this is weird because this is how my views changed. He was given a free roll now, and he's kind of found himself floating in and out of these games because he doesn't have that much structure. It's all well and good if you're banging in goals, but against Crystal Palace, you need to utilise what he's good at, and he's very good at putting the ball in the box, and Arsenal are very poor at defending, as that goal was put in against Swansea. You know, they're not very strong in the air at the moment, despite the fact they've got a 6'7" guy in Mertesacker. But you want to try and get the balls down the line, and this, if you'd play this formation, it'll allow Wayne Rooney to do what he does best for England and picks the ball up deeper and make these last minute runs to finish the ball like he did against Scotland. And if you've got him partnering with an informed Van Persie, which we've not seen in a while, it will be dangerous against Arsenal. Their defence does not handle well at balls being put in the box. Manchester United are very good at reacting to balls in the box. I would go with what is a 4-2-3-1. If you can get Januzaj, depends what type of Januzaj you get. If he's in form, he's good and he's useful. If he's not, then he's just a useful player. He's just a useless player out there, and it's just another number. So I would go, if I was Van Gaal, I'd go with a 4-2-3-1. If these things start to get a little rough, you could always drop it back. Wayne Rooney has no problem playing in a central midfielder role, and it's just about making up for those players in the midfield who are lacking in injury. Well, Fellaini will come in, win the balls in the air, which will be big in this game. And then it's just about using Van Persie. If you get Van Persie, he's hungry against his old team, you could be in for a win. I predict goals here. I'm going to put my neck on the line. I don't know. It might be 3-2. It could be 2-2. Might even be 2-1. I just think there's goals in this game. Both defences pretty bad at the moment in time, and it's going to be interesting to see. So those are my predictions. If you disagree or agree, leave your comments in the section below. If you're watching after the game, let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm completely wrong or completely right, and make sure to give me praise where due. And also follow us on Twitter at TYT Sports and me at Francis_Maxwell. And don't forget to subscribe.